Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to the second video on tips to prepare for being an amazing husband or wife. Today we are going to be discussing a really important topic in ensuring that you are the type of spouse that you should be to your partner. And this topic is the topic of our Deen. Now when I say Deen, I don't mean the Deen of Islam, but I mean our religiosity. So we're often sold this notion that when we get married, some way, in some magical method, there's going to be a sharp improvement in our Deen. That having a partner, having someone to wake up with for Fajr or to read Quran together is automatically going to make us a better Muslim. And the truth of the matter is that is a myth. If you are not solid in your worship before getting married, you likely are not going to be solid in your worship after getting married. And it is not someone else's responsibility to ensure that you are on top of your worship. Your relationship between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your responsibility alone. And so if we are placing that weight of that relationship on our spouse, we might be setting ourselves up for failure. So it's really important that we have the conversation with ourselves of what is our worship or baseline of worship like. One very important piece of advice that I often give people is if you find yourself struggling to do more than what is typically expected, at the very least, make sure your baseline of worship is intact. So what does that mean? That means that you have to ensure that the fara'id or the required acts of us in Islam are being met on a daily basis. This means that you are praying all of your 5 salah regularly. It means you are trying to strive for the best of character. It means as much as you can and as long as you're able, you are fasting during Ramadan. You're meeting the very bare minimum of worship. Now, that's a bare minimum, but it's not where we should stop, especially if we are trying to be a better husband or better wife. And it is really important that we work on this improvement in our Deen prior to getting married. Why? Because spiritual burnout is a very real thing. If you are attempting to make a major shift immediately after getting married, you might find that you're able to keep up with it for a few weeks, maybe even a few months, maybe even an entire year. But eventually, it's not your norm, and your intentions might have been a bit faulty. You might not have been doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but to impress or to make your spouse more comfortable. And then once you get burned out, you are going to find yourself faltering and not being able to maintain that standard of worship that you had before. So if you take the time to make that improvement before you get married, then you can make those little marginal improvements and find yourself improving in your relationship over a longer period of time, so that when you do enter a marriage, you're entering it at a higher level of worship that is actually sustainable for you. And that's really, really important, because you don't want to lose this really beautiful blessing of being able to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a deeper, at a deeper place. Where is a place that you can start? Your 5 salah is a really great place to start. Obviously, making sure that you're praying your 5 salah, which is just the very basic necessity as a Muslim, but starting there, as in trying to improve your khushu', trying to improve your focus and your connectedness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during your salah. If you're not already making dua during your salah, then implementing that practice. Taking the time to make dua after you pray. Trying to implement sunnahs. This is a really great opportunity to almost give yourself a mini boot camp in improving your worship. Now, when you think about what you want in a partner. Oftentimes we think about religiosity. We say we want someone who's practicing. What I urge you to do and to think about is, instead of aspiring to being with someone who practices, become that person who practices at a higher level. And when you do that, there's a really cool thing that happens, which is like attracts like. So because you change your means of worship and you are connecting at a greater level with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're probably going to be around people who are like that more. You're probably going to find yourself in settings that are more religious and more righteous. And because of that, you are going to be able to attract someone who is at a level of worship that you're also at. And so it works in a great benefit in that you are able to purify yourself, you kind of purify your friend circle, and then ultimately from that hopefully comes someone who is able to really be the partner to your worship. I hope that this video was helpful to you and that you were able to explore different ways to enhance your worship and really think about how can I become a more practicing, more connected person, first and foremost for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also so that I can be a better partner to the person that I marry. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.